prefer, not to have your face on the screen, you can obviously make sure that your camera is not on for the recording, but the recording will be posted on our website so that people can view it at a later date. And we ask that during the presentation you mute your mic just in case you have background noise. And then if you want to ask a question, feel free to unmute and go ahead and ask it out loud, or you can always add it in the chat as well, and we'll monitor that as we go along. We also ask that you put your email in the chat so we have an idea of who's attending, and we can make sure to put you on our mailing list for upcoming information about enrollment windows and things like that. We encourage you to check out our new website if you haven't already. It's KickapooValleyForestSchool.org. Lots and lots of information. It just opened up last week, and we're still building it, but there's tons of information now, so we invite you to check us out there, as well as on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Kickapoo Valley Forest School. So I'll just take a moment to introduce the three of us that are here from the leadership team. My name is Jonelle. I'm the education director at the Kickapoo Valley Reserve, and I've been there for almost 20 years, and I'm really excited to be part of this project. It's been building for a long time, and we've had a lot of community interest, and we're really excited to be able to bring a public charter school, an all nature immersion forest school to our community. So thank you for being here.
Great. Robin, would you like to go next? And then I can do the PowerPoint.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Hosman, and I work with the education program at the Kickapoo Valley Reserve, and happy to be here tonight talking more about our curriculum and answering any questions you have.
Thanks, Robin. My name is Julia Buckingham, and I'm the lead teacher for the Kickapoo Valley Forest School. I, too, am excited to be here to talk about our curriculum. So if at any time you have any questions, please either put them in the chat if you are on that capability with us, or just go ahead and ask. We'd love to try to answer them. So we'll give you a general overview of the curriculum, how we see it working at the Kickapoo Valley Reserve in the scope of a forest school, and then daily schedule, and we'll go from there if you have any more specific questions. So let me present the screen and we can get going. For those of you on the phone, I'll talk through both of the slides so that you'll be able to know what's going on. So for those of you who, so Janelle, can you see the screen? Does that look good?
It does.
Okay, great. So the Kickapoo Valley Forest School is a Lafarge Forest School District, public, charter, tuition-free school, eventually hoping to serve 4K, which is 4-year-old kindergarten through 2nd grade. And this February, we are starting to enroll 16 4K students and 16 kindergarten students, which will be split into 2 different classrooms of multi-age. So our mission, Kickapoo Valley Forest School mission, is to enrich children's learning with opportunities to connect, explore, and engage through immersion in the natural world. So on the bottom of the screen, I have numbers 1 through 5, and I went around and tried to match leaves that were correlating to the number. And I actually, as an adult, had a really fun and engaging time. And it was actually kind of difficult, but I also felt really in tune to everything that was going around. And I became to, I started to find patterns and I started to find similarities. So it was really neat just in that one small activity, how it really engaged myself, even as an adult. So the possibilities are endless. I walked around with these numbers, and you'll see this them repeating throughout the slides, but just the possibility of the endless opportunities when you're using nature as the classroom. It's pretty neat. So here's sort of a graphic on nature and how nature play teaches children. And so to climb higher, think creatively, find their own rhythm, explore, imagine, rely on their senses, assess risk, test their boundaries, use their outside voice, observe, nurture life, resolve conflict, cultivate a sense of place and self, improvise solutions, feel free, recognize beauty, collaborate, be resilient, regulate stress, learn through play, wonder why, get messy, develop their strength, build immunity, gain respect, and feel connected to the wild. Just to name a few. So we are using what we're calling a forest school model, place-based education within a forest school model. And so over these next couple slides, we'll sort of talk about what a forest school model is and how it relates into this larger idea of place-based. So as you know, the school will be taking place at the Kickapoo Valley Reserve. So we feel that the Kickapoo Valley Forest School will offer opportunities for children to learn academic, social, and practical life skills while they spend much of their day outside at the KVR. Through play, exploration, to investigate, inquire, and experience the natural environment every day, even rain or shine or snow or cold weather. So nature becomes our classroom. So a general definition of what a forest school is to use that natural environment to engage the students in learning academic and life skills. So life skills such as emotional and creative and practical life skills as far as, making things or taking care of themselves. Nature is the teacher, and our trained staff will become the guides that help the students discover, connect, and reflect to their experiences. I have a picture of a fern, one of those angel wing ferns, and it's just so wonderful to talk about, why they're still growing in the middle of the fall when it's so cold, and why like to look at their patterns and their spiral. And so I just liked that as sort of a really beautiful reminder of things and nature being a teacher. Just if you stop to observe. So some core elements of the forest school, we talked about we'll talk more about place-based. We talked about that all weather immersion, the nature as teacher. We're very fortunate to have a model to have a very small class size. So we'll have a 1-to-8 ratio, so 1 adult to 8 children. So we hope to have a teacher and an assistant or paraprofessional in each classroom. So inquiry-based teaching style, that's to really help the child ask questions and to follow up those questions and to how to learn more and to investigate more things. Child inspired, child directed, and it's child led. Obviously, the teacher is helping them and guiding them and making sure that they're staying safe and that they're advancing and growing on their skills, but it starts with the child and their interests. So one of my favorite quotes kind of sums up that idea of that place-based in a forest school model, but David Sobel, he's out of Antioch University, and he's kind of a leader in the forest school modeling world. And he talks about place-based education is the process of using the local community and environments as a starting point to teach concepts of language arts, mathematics, social studies, science, and other concepts across the curriculum. So coming up, there's a really neat graphic that will talk more about that idea. But the pedagogy of place, there's a man named James Lewicki. He's from this region, and he has some publications out about that idea of using your environment, the actual natural environment, but also your community and all of the resources as your classroom. So understanding that sense of place, nature teaches, where and how a student learns is vital as to what children learn, and that respect is an integral part to learning. So the understanding of once they know, so I know, they'll care, I care, and I do. So they end up learning about something, forming a strong relationship for it, and then end up wanting to do something about it to make it better or to protect it. So here's that graphic I was telling you about, place-based education. And it's a person holding a globe that spans out from local to regional to global, and how we can use local concepts to teach regional and global ideas, concepts. So there's a really good example of this. So the little streams at KVR can feed into the Kickapoo River, which can feed into the Wisconsin River, which feeds into the Mississippi River, which then the Mississippi River flows south for thousands of miles into the Gulf of Mexico and into the ocean, right? So you can talk about how some small little water path can feed into a larger path. And you can talk about migratory birds along the Mississippi River. You could talk about watersheds. You could talk about snow melting. So there's a large range of ideas that can stem from that one little stream at KVR. Or that idea of if children can learn about the deciduous, hardwood forests of Wisconsin and understand the importance of that ecosystem, it helps them start to grasp the importance of a gigantic rainforest in South America. So giving those sort of concrete ideas to study and learn to start to understand these faraway places or larger concepts that they can't actually experience themselves. Besides through maybe, television or books, they have a little bit more of a concrete idea. So these experiences help shape awareness of the local and to help grasp these global concepts. We've had this slide before about like the philosophy of KVFS. And so making mud pies, climbing trees, staring up at clouds, this is some of the most meaningful and we feel important learning of childhood. Exposure to nature has been shown over and over to be critical to our physical, social, emotional, and intellectual health. Time in nature builds stronger, smarter, and happier children. A child learns to care for themselves. They also learn to care for the world around them. Experiencing and learning about nature in early childhood builds a strong base for long-lasting environmental literacy, as well as preparing children with the skills they need to be upper grade ready. So I have a picture up that's these little hemlock pine cones and just using them as little counters. So 1 + 2 = 3. Just that idea of using what we have around us for materials as well as learning opportunities. So this idea of emergent curriculum where you follow the child's interests and with something that they may discover for that day, and through that you can open up the world to that idea of other concepts of language, history, math, music, just from one little idea that has sparked an interest. So child will build independence, self-confidence, physical strength, and coordination, determination, teamwork, problem solving, endurance, and friendship through their interactions with nature. Some example of activities: collecting maple sap, exploring creeks and ponds, observing animal tracks, experiencing music and theater play in nature, building snow forts, raking leaves. These are some activities that we consider the curriculum. Skills that will develop: counting, measuring, weighing, building, experimenting, patterns, building language skills, practicing, understanding limits, following directions, showing compassion, noticing beauty, experiencing the mindfulness. So this is just a typical daily schedule, and it'll change. Our superintendent of the Lafarge School District has mentioned that the school year next year may go until 2:30, which is similar to this year. So this schedule that I have up goes until 3. So it is room for change, but this is kind of just giving the idea of the day. So dropping off at the visitor center parking lot. It'll be a morning circle time. Then we'll have a little short walk in the morning, potentially to one of our satellite classrooms or just around the visitor center loop or somewhere close. Go to our classroom space, and then we'll have about like an hour and a half allotted time for working inside the classroom or outside of the classroom, and having the child choose what sort of activities they're interested in doing. So there'll be lots of opportunities for them to continue building the fort they did yesterday, or to work on a math work that they're really interested in learning a skill on, or doing dishes, or playing with a friend with some loose part planks that are outside. So just having the opportunity to choose what work they want to do and to transition. And allowing the child to do that, they can really focus and concentrate and build those skills that they need, especially for those young children, of concentration and just being with their friends. So that opportunity for that long work period can really develop and grow that, which is important for them to really get engaged and into an activity. So lots of storytelling, music. We'll have, another group time before lunch, and, a time after lunch to have more of a group games or free play, which would typically probably be like a general recess at a school that had like a playground. But here, it'll be a time that we can start we can do more, gym type activities like with balls or group game type lessons. And then rest time, we have a purposeful long chunk of time for resting, because we feel that these children are going to be very exhausted after having a morning of being outside and playing with their friends. So definitely making sure to have that option for them each day. Another opportunity for snack, and then a longer adventure time. We're calling it the afternoon adventure, so that they can, take a longer hike or go to a further distance at KVR. And then of course having another closing circle to end out our day. That's kind of the basic idea for now of what we're thinking of how the day may look. So we're going to think about calling our teachers more guides and facilitators. There, as far as, the traditional teacher that stands in front of the class and dictates materials, the guide and the facilitator, the teacher, will be able to work with them and lead them into the areas of interest, but also making sure that they're meeting and gaining academic and social skills appropriate to their age. So to provide safety, to uphold child in their growth towards their best self by noticing gifts and challenges, helping children grow through creating a loving and kind social environment, create boundaries and expectations for safe use of tools and materials, hold the development of the whole group and the child in mind, and use careful observation and engagement through thoughtful questions, stories, and provide stepping stones for child insight. So I'm going to go through a few of our main key points of our school. And so I know we're running, I would like to have some time for questions. So I'll try to go through these a little quickly because they have a lot of words on them, but I know that everyone can't really see. So I'll do my best to try to find the common ground in between that. So playing in nature is that we put that first because we feel it's, a very huge part in the very first stepping stone to providing this environment for the children. So hands-on experience with nature, extended periods of time in nature, continuously over and over and through all seasons is really important, because just by being in nature, the child can pick up on those subtle differences and those major differences from day to day as the seasons change. So children have a strong sense of gaining life skills from the actual play in nature. For instance, building forts help with cognitive skills, attention, memory, observation, and climbing, carrying logs, and hiking can help strengthen a child's physical skills of balancing, coordination, and endurance. And then when children understand of themselves and the world around them through exploring and discovering through play in nature. And immersions in their pursuits throughout each day builds a lasting connection to their world. And we talked about that earlier, that I know, I know, I care, and I do sort of idea. So the overarching theme that's going to help set the culture for our school, we're calling them our cultural calendar. And so these cultural calendars will be shaped by celebrations and festivals that we have according to the seasons. For instance, in the fall, we might have a seed saving and harvest festival. In the spring, we might have a maple sap festival. And in May, at the end of the year, we may have a bird return celebration. So just that idea how the whole school will build their themes, their monthly themes, and their weekly lessons around these larger cultural calendar ideas that the whole school is involved in. So a monthly theme, for instance, might be color. And so obviously in September, there's lots of ideas of what could happen with color. For instance, a kindergarten class may study goldenrod flowers the first week that they're at school, but the second and first grade class may be learning about goldenrod flowers and how they can dye wool. So that's that idea of color is the theme, but the scaffolding skills will be built upon the classrooms year after year. So all of we're working on creating curriculum with our curriculum committee or our curriculum group, and we're making sure that all of the curriculum is related to state and national standards. So for instance, there's science standards and social studies standards that are specifically going to relate to these monthly themes in the cultural calendars. But we're going to have like you probably have heard of like Common Core state standards, where those are going to be more related to what's happening with the language or math materials and emerging curriculum that they're working on. So it's a lot, and it sort of fits in that sort of way of, science and social studies for those themes, and math and language for the emerging curriculum, and the hands-on materials. But at the same time, it's kind of just like a jumbled. They're not going to be set blocks of here's math time, here's language time, here's social studies time. It's all going to be mixed up. So it really gets put onto that teacher to have a very good organizational skills to make sure that all of these lessons and connections are being recorded. So it's exciting. So here's just a quick, idea of a math and language emerging curriculum. So while building a fort, a kindergarten child could meet a literacy standard as they're talking to their friend of where to put a preposition of put that off, take that off, or put that over here. Or a second grade student could meet a similar standard when they're reflecting or telling their friends how to build a fort. So everything is specifically laid out as far as how it relates to these standards. So I've talked about hands-on materials. So for instance, I have a picture of 1 through 5 and these little berry counters. I'm using the natural materials to make a concept. So could be the lesson on odd and even. So you can see number 3 and number 5 have one at the bottom because it's the odd little number doesn't have a partner, right? So you can use these materials that we can find at the KVR to provide specific concepts that we need the children to concretely understand. Hands-on materials will also be a lot of the life skills as far as washing dishes, zipping your coat, sweeping, preparing a meal, breaking leaves, and as well as how to write letters, how to hold a pencil, how to cut with scissors. All of those sort of opportunities are going to be mixed in throughout the day. So one major thing we've talked about a little bit before are life skills. So care of self, like how do you prepare a meal or wash your hands? Care of others, how do you walk lightly out in the forest as to not disturb animal creature home that you're walking past. Care of the environment as a whole, your space, how to clean out your cubby, how to take your boots off outside before you go into your classroom so the classroom doesn't get muddy. Grace and courtesy, how to navigate those social and emotional needs of while you're with your peers and adults. And these will all be compiled in what we're calling a skills booklet. And this will, and along with that, we're going to have a risk assessment as far as, by a stream or cutting wood with a saw. Those are all things that are going to need a careful thought so that staff and students are aware of these risks. And we're hoping next November to have a whole entire roundtable on the topic of risk. So that'll be fun to dive into that a little bit more. So these circles of exploration of the homeroom is like that small little home-based classroom will be a central point to make sure that they're warm and cozy and have a safe environment. And then the play forest space outside of the classroom might have a fire pit and loose parts and boards and maybe a rope swing and logs and something for the children to be able to just play in day to day. And we hope that the children during their work time can be in the homeroom space and the forest play space simultaneously, depending on what their interests are. And then beyond that, the third circle is that daily place visit. So maybe we'll walk to the pond a couple times a week, or we'll walk the visitor center loop, or we'll go to the tiny town where there's like a old white pine forest that's wonderful and fun and beautiful to play in. And then beyond that is our community. So like the farther away places of the Kickapoo Valley Reserve, but also the fiber mill in town, or the library, and the apple orchard, building in that community and using our community partners as a classroom as well. So here's a list of some of the community partners. And that's something that we're really going to want to start working more on, and having to gaining a relationship with lots of people in our community. So here's just a quick slide about emerging curriculum. Just that idea of allowing children to have opportunities, giving them these opportunities, and then and following their interest. So for the day, you may have it planned to go down and catch tadpoles in the pond, but on the way down to the pond, they notice a hawk flying over the sky, and that becomes a stronger interest than what you may have originally set out that for. But knowing that they're learning, and them having that interest in the hawk versus the tadpoles, they're gonna probably gain a lot more out of it, and you may have been able to teach very similar concepts. But just that idea of being flexible and willing to follow the child's interests. And there's a picture of a wild ginger plant, and I just love that heart shape, just to show that there's so much out. We could go on an easy shape walk and be exposed to so many wonderful opportunities with the endless amounts of shapes out there. So I love these hearts. So quick thing about assessments. The teachers will have a lot of record keeping. So we'll have like a checklist of these skills, of those life skills we were talking about. The child will, and the teacher help, will create portfolios of some of their work that they'd like to have, so that we can present at parent-teacher conferences or open houses. The child will keep a personal journal. The teacher will also create narrative reports of a typical day and some activities that the child is very interested in. There will be a traditional report card, probably very similar to the Lafarge School District, and that kind of just helps our school have some sort of comparison for data and record keeping, and just to make sure that the school is doing the best that it can do, and then know where we can strive to do better. So it's just kind of a nice little check-in point. And then there are common state assessments, but for the younger grades, being 4K through second, they're pretty benign, and they're not too rigorous or strong, and actually beneficial for some of the teachers as far as monitoring children's growth and making sure that the children are receiving everything that they need. So in my eyes, I don't feel it is a negative thing. So that's what I have. I have the last slide. It's on our website, www.kickapoo-valley-forestschool.org. If you haven't checked that out, it's a great place to stay up to date. I recommend checking out the family resources page, and also the curriculum page, and soon the enrollment page, and we'll have some more information on forms and dates and all of that up. So that is my presentation. If anyone has any questions, we would love to try to answer them. Let me try to stop screen sharing. Any questions?
Hi, this is Lori. I had a question. This is Lori. Can you just talk a little bit about the inside space and the inside classroom? I'm assuming like there'll be days where if the temperature's too cold or nap time and stuff. Is it in the KVR center? Like where are they inside?
Yes, we're going to have space the first few years within the existing KVR space, within hopes to expand into our own smaller, satellite type classrooms. But yes, the KVR has dedicated some space for us inside, which is going to be really nice as far as the chilly days, and like you had mentioned, resting for sure. But yeah, we're excited about the future and the growth of the school, because the possibilities are endless. We have that opportunity to build some really neat spaces. So we're excited to start working on that. Another thing I hadn't mentioned was like the multi-age classrooms. We feel it's very beneficial to have 2 grades. And one thing I think about is that um, life in regular society, we're not all the same age. So I feel that it's important to have a multi-age where children can learn. The older children can help teach the younger children and reinforce that knowledge, and the younger children can look up to the older children and really have something to look up to, but also can gain some insight to what they're doing. And depending on the child and their skill level, sometimes an older child may need more remedial help, and a younger child may be functioning at a higher, academic level. So it's nice to have that opportunity to have a mixed age classroom.
Will all the grades be mixed once there's like first and second grade as well?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So year number 2. So I would say let's call next year number 1. We're just going to have 4 and 5-year-olds, or 4K and 5 in kindergarten. And then year number 2, we're going to have 4K and 5K together. And then we'll have our very first class of first graders. So just that year 2, they'll just be they'll just be first graders, right? Because we won't have second graders yet.
Any other questions? Not seeing anything in the chat.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more too about like assessment or Common Core or the standards or the actual like curriculum document that we're working on, or specific questions for like gear, like what should your child be wearing, or things like that, playing, or
Hi, Julia. This is Megan.
yes.
And I did have a question with all of the paperwork needs that the teachers have. Will the teachers have dedicated time to focus on all of that documentation and the children assessments and those sorts of things separate from when they're interacting with the students?
Yeah, so we've been looking at that daily schedule, and we're hoping, with that long rest time, that will really provide that'll provide teachers some time for that sort of thing. But also that shortened day for next year, I would think could provide some time for them to access that as well. But yes, that's something that we definitely need to really make sure that are given to our teachers to do, since it is such a large record keeping opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then about the clothing and attire, you previously have mentioned possibly having like a lending library and something along those lines. Then I'm just also thinking, will there be a space for children to store if, they're going to have multiple layers? Would they need to bring like a huge like duffel bag, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean? Or will they be able to just kind of keep some clothes there so they're not having to bring it back and forth every day?
Yeah, I've been really thinking about that a lot. Yeah, and I can see a child may go through 2 pairs of clothes one day and then not need clothes for a week, right? So I think it'd be really important to dedicate like a tote of some kind per child to be able to have their own stuff from home. But then at the same time, having back stock of extra pants and socks and underwear, shirts there too, on top of what the child's situation is, because I feel to ask them to bring it back and forth each day, multiple shirts and multiple pants would end up being a lot to carry back and forth. And I've found it to be very helpful when you have that clothes there and they have their name on their tote and they can go change independently on their own. So yes, we'll definitely have to have space for that. and dedicated time, so that when we come back from our long hike, that they can change their wet clothes before they get on the bus to go home, or things like that, just to make sure that that's built in. Because if we're really trying to have the children learn these life skills of doing things themselves, then they're going to need to be able to change. And we know how, I'm sure you know how long it takes for children to change themselves, right? So being able to allow that time for them to do that is really important.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's just especially, in Wisconsin, as we all know, we dress in so many layers because it can change on a 15-minute basis.
Yes, definitely. Right. You have your snow pants and your and your boots and a couple pairs of socks. Yeah, it can definitely add up, and it can take a long time for sure. That's what's nice about, having two teachers in a classroom, because one teacher can start taking the children that are ready out, and so they're not boiling up inside, and you can have the other ones hanging back and helping, and, being with the ones that still might need a little extra time to do those sort of things. So it's really nice to have that extra help. Yeah, we're so excited about like the equipment and things that we can buy with our grant money. So we received that large grant this past summer from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And so, the opportunities for buying supplies are, within reason, are, very plentiful. So I've been really excited to even think about the idea of like getting little bicycles or little, what are those called without the pedals? The little
Strider bikes.
Yeah, the little Strider bikes, and using old Highway 131 for cruising up and down, So just having that opportunity for children to just explore is going to be really exciting. So I'm just thrilled for this opportunity to be outside. I love being outside all the time, and I just can't believe I can combine being a teacher and being outside all the time together. It's pretty exciting.
Hi, I was just curious, what about like other school supplies? So like markers, pencils, things like that. Will that be incorporated as well, or how will that work out?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I mean, like there's some really nice artistic brands that I really, I think are really important to offer children, really nice top quality materials. So like nice chalks, nice paints, nice colored pencils, those sort of things we'll buy with like school funds. But then we might also ask for, at the beginning of the year, how you get your class list. We might ask for some crayons and a box of tissue and some, colored pencils, and those can be, like the Crayola brand or whatever you choose, and those would kind of be all grouped together as like group supplies. So each child may not have their own set of crayons, but we might have a pack stockpile of crayons, and then take out a few at a time just to share throughout the whole year. And having those art materials offered to the children throughout the day when they want to work on art. Yeah, I mean, there will be a supplies list, but I'm anticipating, child gear is going to be the biggest expense for parents, and that's why we're trying to help, offset that with the lending library as well, or actually even providing some materials or some equipment, or gear from the actual grant money too, like potentially full body rain suits or something like that we might provide for the school. With those sort of supplies, we still need to decide what we're going to purchase. And one thing we haven't mentioned too is the food service. So we are going to work with the Lafarge School District, and we want to work with some community partner farmers. So we're going to start really working on our governance council to has a food security committee, and we're going to actually try to arrange this food service for KVR that is using our local community partners too. So that's in the works. So we'll be excited to tell you more when that develops. We have a meeting, on-site learning day this Saturday, October 17th at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we're going to have it at the Winter Bluff, Evergreen. No, Winter Bluff.
Wintergreen.
Thanks. I guess I've been talking a lot tonight. Thank you, Jenna. Wintergreen Bluff Trail at KVR. I was just there this week and it is gorgeous with all of the fall colors. So you can access that right off of the visitor center parking lot. It's just south. So you park and just head south a little bit. There's a sign that'll lead you that way. There's a gigantic oak right at the entrance. And then you can look for signs too. But anytime between 10 and 1, I'll be there with some fun little activities to do along your route. So come join us if you're interested. Tell your friends.
Do any of you who are